It's now 13:30, and the Transportation Subcommittee is now called to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Representatives Boyd.
Here.
Grills.
Here.
Hall.
Here.
Hicks of Washington. Howell.
Here.
Potts. Russell.
Here.
Towns. Vital.
Here.
Chairman Whitson.
Here.
Chairman, you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Any personal orders or announcements from the committee? I have one or two. One, I'd like to welcome the Tennessee Road Builders Association for their Day on the Hill, and welcome to the Transportation Subcommittee, folks. Glad to have you here. And last week, from gavel to gavel, this committee, we were done with 2 bills in 50 seconds. It's not going to happen today, okay? So with that, the first bill is item number 1, is from the distinguished gentleman from Macon, Clay, Pickett, Scott, and Fentress County is recognized on House Bill 2664.
Well, thank you. Chairman, I appreciate that. On behalf of Speaker Sexton, it's good to be with you all today. This is actually relative to his home county of Cumberland. There exists they have a railroad authority, and currently there's only one, the county mayor, and then one other that sits on that board. Well, this legislation would require that that authority would it has to operate. The county must have a board of directors consisting of at least 3 or 5 members. There's 2 options here: 3 or 5 members, as determined by the county legislative body, of course, the county commission. In this case, and I can get into the 2 different options, but option 1 is where the county mayor would sit on it himself or his designee, along with 2 members of the county commission. And then option 2 would be it's a 5-member board where he, the mayor, or designee, he selects a member, and then 3 are chosen by the county legislative body. But anyway, they need to get this up and according to code, so that's the reason that this legislation is in front of you today.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. Do we have any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, without objection, we are voting on House Bill 2664. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. It moves on to full Transportation Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
Next up, item number 2 from Speaker Johnson. You are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have an amendment.
Okay, so first, okay, we have a motion and second. Now we need a motion and second on the amendment.
Tracking code 13412.
That's what I have. Okay, we are now voting to place amendment number 013412 on the bill. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Amendment goes on the bill, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2044, as amended, simply allows automobile dealers, under present law, they can issue temporary plates for a period of 30 days for the cost of $5.50. This bill would allow them to offer a temporary plate for 60 days for the price of $6.50. That's what the bill does.
We heard the explanation of the bill. Any questions or comments from the committee? Chairman Howell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the bill. This actually happened to me back in June. I bought a vehicle and temporary tag, and one day before the expiration date, I happened to be walking behind my truck, and I noticed it expired tomorrow. And I panicked and called the dealer. What do I do? Well, we'll get you an extension, and and I didn't get the additional temporary tag for another 15 days. I think this is a good bill because I talked to my clerk, and apparently this is happening more and more. And I think it's a good legislation. I'm glad to support it.
Thank you, Chairman Howell.
Anybody else? Yes, and I'd like to echo my appreciation too, also, Speaker Johnson.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now voting on House Bill 2044 as amended. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Moves on to full transportation. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee.
Members, item number 3 has been rolled 1 week. That brings us to item number 4 from the distinguished gentleman from Putnam County. You are recognized on House Bill 2542.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Chairman and members. House Bill 2542 was brought to me by local county clerks association. My county clerk and the Clerks Association many years ago asked the legislature to be able to perfect liens as it related to titles in our local communities because they could perfect those liens quicker on behalf of their citizens in those states. It was a very important part to do that. Many years ago, they were doing it at no cost to their citizens. However, the state collects $5.50 for the state portion of that and $5.50 for the local portion of it, but the local doesn't receive any of the money. What this bill would allow is for the $5.50 rate that goes to locals to be increased to $8.50, which would be a $3 charge per title that they perfect. It would be passed on, but the difference is that $3 can come back to the clerk's office because, as they say in my business, he who does the work should get the pay. In this case, they will. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
We heard the explanation of the bill. Do we have any questions from the committee? Seeing none, we are now voting on House Bill 2542. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Bill passed. Moves on to full transportation. You're welcome. House members, item number 5, House Bill 2185 has been rolled 1 week. That brings us to House Bill 1921 by Chairman Wright. And there he is. Chairman Wright, you are recognized, sir, in the well. Chairman Wright, you are recognized on House Bill 1921. Do I have a motion and a second? Motion. We have a motion and a second, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought I was way down the list, so I apologize for running in the door at the last moment. I would also like to say there's amendment 013408.
Yes, that's what I show.
Which makes the bill.
Okay, do we have a motion and a second? We have a motion and a second on the amendment. All in favor of putting amendment number 013408 on the bill as makes the bill, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. I mean, I'm an aye, okay? Goes on the bill, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just a note up front about the amendment. The amendment had a tweaking of the description of the highway that were designated as memorial. First, I'd like to say Sergeant Ryan Christian Knaus. April 7th, 1998, his mom, Paula, brought him into the world. He progressed through Gibbs High School, being a top member of the Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps. Graduated Gibbs High School in 2016. He enlisted in the U.S. Army and chose a difficult path. He was a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division. Thursday, August the 26th, 2021, in Afghanistan, while assisting U.S. personnel and Afghan citizens, he was killed in action. September the 21st, 2021, he was laid to rest in Arlington National Cemetery. I stand here before you today to request that the description in this bill for sections of Emory Road and Tazewell Pike near Gibbs High School be designated as the Sergeant Ryan Christian Canals Memorial Highway. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We heard the explanation. Do we have any comments? Chairman Wright, I just want to thank you for bringing this. Normally, these go to the omnibus bill, but this one I think is special, and I think it's very fitting that we recognize the bravery and the service of this young man, and I want to thank you for bringing this. Any other? Seeing none, we're now voting on House Bill 1921. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Goes full transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee.
Thank you. Okay, members, that brings us to item number 7. Representative Warner, you're recognized in the well on House Bill 2487. We have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. House Bill 2487, this bill simply clarifies that UTVs have the same definition of a Class 1, Class 2 off-road vehicle and are entitled to the same licensing, safety requirements, and protocols. This bill also expands a UTV's ability to drive on state highways so long as the speed limit is under 45 miles an hour. It has a positive physical note, or it increases state revenues. At this time, I stand for any questions.
Members, we've heard the explanation from the sponsor. Any questions for the sponsor? We do have testimony that's scheduled from the Department of Safety, and I'd like to recognize Colonel, without objection, we'll go out of session and hear the testimony. We're now out of session with Colonel Matt Perry and Elizabeth Stroker. Please join us for the testimony.
Why do you want me to step aside?
Would y'all please state your name and your department?
Yeah.
Mrs. Stroker, you're
Elizabeth
recognized.
Stroker, Legislative Director for the Department of Safety, and then I've got Colonel Matt Perry of the Highway Patrol with me, and I'll briefly start and let him really take over since he's the expert. As you all know, we come before this committee a lot anytime these ATV bills are up, and generally we can work it out with the sponsor when we're talking. We know that it's good for tourism when you're talking trailheads to restaurants or trailheads to gas stations, things of that nature. However, this bill would open it up for all of these vehicles to be allowed on any state road within the entire state, and that is a massive amount of roadways. And so it does significantly expand where these vehicles can go, and I'll let Colonel explain the safety issues and dangers behind opening up more roads for these vehicles that are not meant for roadways.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Colonel Matt Perry, Tennessee Highway Patrol. I'm chairman committee. I appreciate the opportunity and time to speak. Just echoing what Elizabeth said, you know, I said it out in the hall, we're not really trying to be difficult here. It's about safety and our concern for safety. The more vehicles on the roadway, the more potential hazard. These are vehicles that are not meant to be on the roads. They have seat belts and they're made to roll over when they're off-road, but they're not designed to be impacted by another vehicle or to strike a vehicle, and that's our biggest concern. We're looking at the number. You know, we think this would probably allow for about 6,000 miles of road in Tennessee to be accessed potentially by these vehicles, and we know with that, crashes are surely going to go up. We brought numbers. We've been monitoring ATV crashes, off-highway vehicle crashes for a long time, but certainly since it's become more predominant. They've always ended up on the roadways, certainly in certain areas, but so just over time, we've seen a steady increase. You know, 2016, 17, 18, we were in the teens. 19, 20, the numbers creeping up into the 20s of fatalities a year. Overall crashes seem to be on the rise from 128. Now we're at 164 and 153 in the last 2 years, respectively. So they're starting to go up. Unfortunately, a lot of these crashes probably still aren't reported. Certainly, fatalities they're hard to not report those. But when someone just crashes one of these vehicles on the roadway, certainly in the rural areas, they usually clear the vehicle out long before police are called or arrive. But I'll just stop it. Safety is our biggest concern, and more vehicles on the roadway equal more crashes.
Committee members, do we have any questions for our, the testimony while we're out of session? Representative Grills, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for clarification, 45 mile an hour and under, is that correct? And that was 6,000 miles, up to 6,000 miles, or?
That's the numbers we tried to pull. Just, I mean, I don't want to be quoted perfect on that. We'll come up with to make sure we've got the right numbers, but I think that's correct.
And that's something we got from TDOT, who did the analysis of the bill, and I can confirm with them that that's the most accurate estimate, but that's the number we got from TDOT when we read the bill.
How does this coincide with like a bike, with riding a bicycle down a state road? Does that,
So-
is there certain places you can ride a bike and certain places you can't? Can you?
So a bicycle is treated the same as they can ride anywhere basically as a motor vehicle, and that is a federal requirement for access to travel, that you have to allow bicycles on the roadway.
So a bicycle that does not have a blinker, headlight, or anything can be on the road, but you're saying that a UTV that has a that headlights, brake lights, can't, because that's more dangerous?
What I understand where you're going, Representative Grills. I think, I won't speak for the colonel, but I know the colonel doesn't really like any vehicles on the road except for motor vehicles, but we have to legally allow for bicycles to be on roadways. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily the safest option compared to if they're going to hit a vehicle.
Yeah, and that's what I would say. If it wasn't mandated or allowed federally, and we were talking about a bill that allowed bicycles, I would probably be here telling you the same exact thing, because I think it's less safe. Bicyclists get hit. Unfortunately, we work those crashes regularly, but there's just nothing really we can do about it but try to make the roads, I guess, a little safer for them.
Well, I would guarantee that not a person up here wants to see anyone get hit. But thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the questions, and thank you for love the haircut.
Representative Russell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. And to understand the testimony correctly, the likelihood of injury or death is greater with these vehicles?
Yes, sir, it is. They're just not designed. They're not designed to be struck by another vehicle. They don't go through the same testing and federal requirements that auto manufacturers have to do for occupant safety.
And that would be because they're not intended, they're not made to be on a road. They're made to be off trail, things of that nature. So that's why they're just not intended or even tested for that reason, because that's not the purpose of the vehicles.
Would y'all know the top speed for these vehicles?
I believe it would depend on the type of vehicle. Some could be pretty low and some could be very, very high. It just depends.
But it's safe to say that if they're less than 45 miles per hour, they would impede traffic, which would cause a crash if they couldn't go that fast.
Well, so the bill says that they can only travel on roads that have a speed limit of 45. That doesn't mean that they can't go faster than 45. But yes, if they are ones that can't even go above 30, then I would say that that's fair, that would be a problem as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Vital, you're recognized.
Help me understand for just a minute. I have Razors, all-terrain vehicles. Some are licensed with directional signals and lights, horns. Where can I use those and where can I not? Because I have both, and we go on state roads, probably more often county roads, to go get fuel or go from one property to another, but help clarify me on that.
And so are yours four-wheel or three-wheel?
Four-wheel.
Four-wheel, okay. And you have them registered probably, it's what, a Class 1 vehicle, likely?
I can't answer that question.
Oh, okay, I won't ask that. Those types of vehicles are allowed on county roads currently within the code, if they're properly registered and the person is licensed and has insurance.
Just trying to understand
Yeah,
the clarity here.
there's about 4 different pieces of code that cover all of these types of vehicles with various exceptions. I'd be more than happy. I've got a whole spreadsheet that I keep saved in my computer for when people ask where can these vehicles go. I can send that to you if you would like that information, but it really does depend on the type of vehicle, how it's registered, and what road you're on. It is very nuanced.
And I think that's the issue that a lot of us have. I'm sensitive to the fact that in rural areas, especially in the northern end of my urban county, many people use ATVs or UTVs to go get fuel or to go to a store on the weekends, but it is a safety issue. And for that reason, I am concerned about this.
And I will say that I'm with you there, that the code is very confusing when you try to read it all together. So
Send me a copy of that so
I
I
will.
understand what
I
I'm doing
will.
wrong. Thank you.
Next up, I have Representative Hicks. You're recognized, sir.
So, thank y'all for being here, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, these vehicles are registered, tagged, have lights, brake lights, turn signals, and all of that, and can be ran now on any county road in the state of Tennessee. Is that what I'm hearing?
Not fully. So the bill does two things. One, it adds a new classification of these vehicles that currently is not allowed on any roads. And so that would be an addition for those vehicles specifically. And then everything that's currently allowed on county roads and other specific areas would be expanded to also be allowed on any state road. So it does both of those things separately.
Okay, all right. How would you say that with what's being on, what roads now that they're being on, how would that compare with like motorcycle accidents? Or I know a lot of these, I think I would rather be in one of these vehicles if I was buying one versus, my wife and I ride those Can-Am three-wheel things, and it's safer than a motorcycle, and I'm thinking in my mind, okay, but in my mind, this is even safer than that. Can you address that?
I probably can. I don't have an argument against what you're saying. I mean, you're absolutely right. They're probably a little safer for the occupant than a motorcycle. Motorcycles are something that are currently allowed, and I'd probably be having some of the same argument or the same concerns about safety because they're not really designed to be hit by another vehicle either. I will say that the little bit of difference I don't have figures, but in most motorcycle crashes, the only person hurt is the motorcycle driver occupant. In these cases, a little bit bigger vehicles, the way that they are, I think you're going to see injuries to the person not driving the off-highway vehicle as well.
And we could get you motorcycle statistics if that was something you would be interested in as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Colonel Perry, you did mention that these vehicles are not designed to be impact safety standards like your traditional motor vehicle four-wheel, correct?
Yes, Chairman, that's correct.
And they can hold more than two people.
Yes, sir. I mean, several. Some hold up to four people, and I'm sure even more.
Yeah, that's the difference I see between a bicycle and a motorcycle with these vehicles is the safety factor that's involved with that. Do we have any other questions? Chairman Wood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted some clarification. I understood we were in the bill that expanded it to state highways. I'm confused about the new class, though. Can you, and if I need to wait and direct this back to the sponsor when we go back in session, or if you guys can address that?
I'll let the sponsor address it. It's kind of a new classification.
Any others before we go back in session? Without objection, we're back in session. Thank you very much. Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sponsor, the question I had a second ago, I was understanding the expanding it to state highways. If you could speak just a little bit more about this new class of vehicle.
I'm not sure. I'll just read you the definition of both classes. How about that? Class 1, off-highway vehicle means motorized vehicle with not less than 4 non-highway tires, no more than 6 non-highway tires, whose top speed is greater than 35 miles per hour. That is limited in total dry weight up to 3,500 pounds. That is 80 inches or less in width, measured from outside tire rim to outside tire rim, and that it has a non-straddle seating capable of holding at least 2, but no more than 4 passengers. Class 1 off-highway vehicles include mini trucks. You may have seen some of those little small trucks that have a bed on the back of them. I forget what the name brand is. And I think this is a new class here. What it boils down to, members, is a little bit of common sense here. I think we allow bicycles on the road, we allow motorcycles. We all got to be in agreement here that these things are safer than two vehicles, you might call them, that we already allow on Tennessee roads. Third thing is you're seeing it's more and more our local governments are using these things. My fire department has one or two of them at home that they use when they have a little brush fire or field fire, that they're putting a water thing in the back. They're running out there with these things on the state highway. Metro's using them down here at the Titans game around town. What's good for government is good for the taxpayer. That's what we need to keep in mind. So with that, I'll stand to take any more questions.
Members, we heard the explanation. Any other comments? Chairman Howell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your, excuse me, appreciate your passion for this issue. And we've mentioned bicycles a couple of times, but I would mention that the bicycles are federally mandated. The state has no control over that. We have to allow that. And I don't necessarily agree with it, but I have no choice. And so I have some concerns, 2 or 3 areas. Number one, new classification of vehicles, which we've not had before. I am concerned about the impact safety that Colonel Perry mentioned. I've actually had constituents who've been seriously injured or killed in accidents involving this type vehicle. My biggest concern is it opens up 6,000 miles of roads, Tennessee roads, state roads, not county roads. Now we've heard testimony, we can run these on county roads. But when you open up state roads to, I don't know how many vehicles we're talking about, hundreds, thousands, I don't know. And they're not required to pass the same impact safety tests that vehicles are. I just think it's a Pandora's box. And usually, this type of bill is not unusual to come before this committee. We get these type of bills all the time. But it's usually in an area, a rural area, where there is a campground and they want to go across a state highway, not drive on a state highway, cross a state highway to get to a store or something to buy supplies and go back to the campground. And it's usually involving no more than 5 or 6 miles. We've passed those bills numerous times in conjunction with the Department of Safety and TDOT. And that's often after an amendment or two to scale down the mileage traveled. But in this case, we're talking about 6,000 miles of roadway. And I know that we have bicycles, but just because we have bicycles, in my mind, is no reason to make it more unsafe on our state highways. So I appreciate your passion, appreciate you bringing the bill, but I'm going to have to be a no. Thank you.
Chairman Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sponsor, as I hear you explain this, and you came to my office and talked about it the other day, and Representative Grills makes a good point about if you can do it on county roads, perhaps you should do it on state roads. The question I have is, I can feel the chill in the air, and there's a cool breeze blowing on this bill in committee today. Is there a specific area that you had in mind? I mean, would you want to roll this and amend it to address the concerns of your ATV club or whatever in your area to pick up a few miles that would work for them?
No, not really, because my constituents brought me this bill, and what they do is they'll get on the county roads on the weekend. They'll go to these little meet and threes or whatever that serve meet and threes during the day, but on Friday and Saturday night, they might do catfish, might do steak. So they'll get on these county roads, but they have to hop out every now and then, here and there, on the state road and ride. When I started working this bill, or started drafting this bill, I tried to get, or I did, work with the Department of Safety. Originally, it was 55 mile an hour or more, and we cut it down. And I thought I might have it where they wouldn't have, a big problem with it, but we never could get there. But the district I represent, we don't have trails or big, large public riding areas like they might have up in East Tennessee or anything like that. So a certain section wouldn't really work in my district. Now I would settle for the countywide, but I talked to them before we come in here, and they wasn't in favor of that either. So I'll take my chances here.
Thank you. Chairman Boyd, you said it? Okay. Sponsor, I'll let you, was that the last word?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Members, We're now voting on House Bill 2487. If you're in favor, say aye. If you're not, well, I'm not ready. Hold it. Say no. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? No. Bill fails. Goes to, is it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, next, we have item number 8 by Representative Grills. You are recognized on, oh, you're going all the way around. Okay. Representative Grills, you are recognized on House Bill 2045. Do I have a motion and a second? We have a motion and a second. Any amendments on this bill?
No, sir.
Okay. Would you please explain your bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. In 2014, it's my understanding that the disabled veterans and the Purple Heart recipients had the opportunity to receive 2 free plates. And due to budget constraints, they were asked to sacrifice one of those plates. And all we're trying to do is return this back to the way it was back in 2014 before the budget constraints hit, and give the disabled veterans and the Purple Heart recipients the 2 plates.
We heard the explanation. Do we have any questions from the members? Committee. Question's been called. Without objection, we are now voting on House Bill 2045. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Goes full transportation. Up next, members, we have item number 9, also by Representative Grills. You are recognized, sir, on House Bill 2322. We have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill was brought to me by my veteran service officer there in Dyer County, Mr. Benny Spain. And ultimately what this bill does, it authorizes the issuance of a disabled veteran registration plate without payment of a fee to a veteran with a service-connected disability that is determined by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs to be permanent and total due to the individual's unemployment. So essentially, this veteran may not be disabled 100%, but he is totally unemployable. And we've had issues. Different clerks will offer these tags and some will not. We're trying to bring some clarity across the state. And Mr. Spain and our local clerk could not work this out between them, so he asked me to carry this bill to somewhat bring some clarity to this.
We heard the explanation. Any questions from the committee? Representative Russell.
Thank you, Chairman. And sponsor, who determines if the veteran's unemployable?
That would be the Veterans Affairs, the United States Department of Veterans Affairs.
Would they go through a process to talk to their doctor, or a doctor's note, or Social Security, or disability, or how would that go to being unemployable?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that is, I've never been through that. Thank God I never had to endure anything such as that. But I believe there's a process they would have to go through. And I believe these are for service issues that they received during their service, combat issues.
That would be the only question I would have, is if somebody could come into the Veterans Affairs office and it'd be a good old boy situation and say, well, I don't think you're employable, I'm gonna give you a tag. That would be the only question I'd have.
This with service-connected disability, that is determined by the Department of Veterans Affairs. Those frauds may take place, Chairman Russell, but I can't do anything about that with this bill.
Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sponsor, I'm looking at it, and I like your bill, and I agree with the spirit of it. But reading it, I kind of agree with Chairman Russell. My concern is that currently, if you're 100% permanently disabled, you get it. You want to change that to if you are permanent total, and it kind of seems like that's the same thing. It's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen the other. You're kind of just rewriting it and then putting it back into statute to say the same thing, is the way I read it.
Mr. Chairman, yes, sir. And Chairman Boyd, I think that's probably correct, but there is an issue between clerks that some read it one way and others read it another way, and they say, well, you're not 100% disabled, so we can't give you this. And then some say, well, you're 100% disabled, so we can. And it's all based upon unemployable, the employability of an individual versus the disability of an individual. And it seems like we're getting off in the weeds, and
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that if it's up to the VA to make that determination, if they don't say you're 100% disabled, then that would be the clarity you needed.
Right.
So I'm going to support the bill,
Sure.
but I am a little bit concerned about the ambiguity there of the language, because I don't even know if it just seems like you're restating you're taking the word 100% out, that number, but then you're basically saying if you're totally and permanently disabled, which would be 100% disabled.
well, Mr. Chairman, if there's anybody that has any issues with this whatsoever, and like Chairman Boyd mentioned, I'd like to make sure that I could get you on the phone with the guy in my district so you could make that case or ask those questions so he can maybe do a better job explaining that issue with you, if that would be.
That, Mr. Chairman, now let's talk. I'm
Sure.
gonna vote yes, but I would like to visit with you between this and 4.
Fantastic.
Yeah, sponsor, yeah, I see the point that Chairman Boyd's making. The VA, they determine percentage of disability. I don't think they determine if you can work or not, because let me finish. I know folks who are 100% disabled and they play golf every day, okay? And so I was going to ask our attorney to go out, if we go out of session, he can add some clarity to this issue. Without objection, we're out of session.
Joel Hayes, Office of Legal Services Committee. The provision of these types of license plates is limited to a particular type of disabled veteran. Under the statute, a disabled veteran means a veteran who, having served in the military, is entitled to compensation under the laws administered by the Veterans Administration for any of the following due to disability incurred or aggravated by active military service of the United States: loss or permanent loss of the use of one or both feet, loss or permanent loss of use of one or both hands, or permanent impairment of vision of both eyes. So essentially, those are the types of disabilities that are considered, can be considered, must be considered under the 100% permanent and total. So if it's a disability perhaps for a back injury or something like that, that does not necessarily qualify for this as a disabled veteran. Now, it's my understanding, based on some of my research, that the Veterans Administration does have a rating of unemployability. So where if someone has other disabilities, other service-connected disabilities other than these 3 that I mentioned, that if as a total they are considered to be 100% permanent and total, that may prevent someone from actually working, and they cannot hold a job. The Veterans Administration, through the review of their files and supporting documents, will make a determination that they are unemployable. And so that's what this bill seeks to take care of.
So what happens if the veteran becomes eligible for employment and gets a job?
I don't know if how the Veterans Administration, necessarily Veterans Affairs, deals with that, if it's something where they revoke the permanent and total disability or that unemployability rating, or if it is something where, as a condition of receiving those benefits, the veteran is not able to work.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Without objection, we're back in session. Sponsor, give you the last word.
Mr. Chairman, I think the attorney did a better job explaining it than I did, so.
Okay, good job. Okay. Chairman Howell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for clarity, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around this, Representative Grills. So as I understand it, you're amending the TCA code section 54256. So we have law in code now that permits this, and you're just trying to clarify the code, or are you expanding the code?
That is, it's my understanding we're trying to bring some clarity to the code. With the man that brought the bill to me, Mr. Benny Spain, our Veteran Service Officer, he had given me instances where other places in the state had given these veterans these tags, but our current clerk said they were not eligible for those tags. So he felt that this right here needed to be addressed. So this bill was given to me to bring clarity so that our clerk would grant the tag that he had sent the veteran over to get.
So the tags are being given out in some areas by some clerks now, and this is just clarifying the existing code. Is that correct?
Chairman Hale, yes, sir. That is the way I understand it.
Okay.
I cannot give you a
Okay.
case in Point Nor County where that is taking place,
right.
but that is what the information I've received.
That's helpful. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Grills? Yeah, and agree that this could add clarity and help level the playing field, and I thank you for bringing this bill. So, but we just need to make sure before, we're going to vote on it here, and I've kind of got a feeling it's going to be going to full, but let's make sure that we have the VA and their determination and definitions all ready to go. So.
Mr. Chairman, if it'd be okay with you, I would like to get with maybe you and Chairman Boyd, and we'll just maybe sit down, and I'll get the guy that I have spoken with, and we'll have a conference call with him, if that'd be, Chairman Russell as well, if you would like to
Chairman
join.
Russell, or Representative Russell, you're.
Do you think the Veterans Affairs officers that you spoke to would come testify in the full committee?
Mr. Chairman, I think he would be happy to come up here and testify in full committee if that was what the will of the committee was.
Yes, he would be welcome, and also just make sure he gives a 24-hour notice to this young lady right here. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. To the chairman's office, not our office. Okay, sorry, Mr. Chairman, not ready to take over there. Excuse me. So with that, okay, any other comments from the committee? Okay, folks, we are now voting on. We have a question on the bill. Without objections, we are now voting on House Bill 2322 to send it to full transportation. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Goes on to full transportation. Members, do I have a motion that completes? Well, we are adjourned.